Lena boarded Tram 11 at 4:50 a.m. Yemming, 4 minutes before sunrise, the hour when the streetlights were still on, but already embarrassed by the first pale brush of morning. She had never ridden this early before, yet her new pastry kitchen job required a dawn arrival. The wagon smelled of metal chilled overnight and faint lavender someone had spritzed in an attempt at kindness. 10 passengers were scattered through the carriage, a boy with headphones too large for his head, a gray-bearded man polishing the brass head of a walking stick, 2 nurses comparing notes in hushed Polish, a woman in a silk suit scrolling through presentations. A handwritten notice was taped above the row of buttons that once rang for stops. Tram 11, rewind until a story is shared. No driver on duty should be authorizing stop-on stories. Oh, and did you leave? But is it you? Lena smiled at what she assumed was guerrilla poetry from some art school project. The city had recently hosted an urban myths festival. Probably the sign was a leftover prank. She set her tote on her lap, tucked an escaped curl of hair behind her ear, and watched the sodium lamps glide by. When the tram hissed away from first station, the rails groaned with a deeper note than she remembered, almost a reverse echo. The city outside looked slightly blurred, as though viewed through old river glass. Crossing the canal bridge, they passed slag heaps of winter snow, still stubborn in shady corners, and Lena practiced the speech she would deliver to her new colleagues. Hello, I'm Lena, apprenticed at Hildebrandt Bakery, favorite flavor cardamom. The tram halted at second station, but none of the passengers rose. The doors slid open to emptiness. Seconds later, the lights flickered, extinguished, and returned. The carriage lurched, not forward, but backward. Lena's stomach dipped, as if they'd rolled over a hill's crest. Yet the track was flat. The scenery unwound. The canal bridge slipped past in reverse. Pigeons flew backward. The graffiti dragon she had noted earlier swallowed its flames. In under a minute, they screeched to a stop exactly where they had begun. First station. The platform clock still read 4:58. Silk suit broke the silence. What in God's name? The gray-bearded man answered without looking up. We didn't tell it anything. The sign? The nurse with freckles asked. He nodded. You'd think people would learn. I was on yesterday too. Lena studied him now. Behind the beard were eyes the color of sea-mouthed jade. You're saying the tram rewound time, only its own ribbon of it. He tapped his stick against the floor. Unless someone offers a story. Personal one, mind. Not gossip, not headlines. Headphones kid snorted. Stories are for apps, Grandpa. The older man shrugged, but the carriage hummed ominously, as though the cables in its spine bristled. Lena felt pressure in her ears, the way she did before an elevator dropped. All right. The boy yanked off his headphones. Fine, I'll go. He stood awkwardly, one sneaker squashing a candy wrapper, cleared his throat. Name's Amir. Yesterday, I pretended to forget my sister's piano recital because I was embarrassed my friends would think it was lame. She played anyway, looking for me the whole time. Mom showed me a video afterward, and I saw the empty chair she saved in the front row. I told her I'd watched from the back, but that was a lie. End of story. The tram's overhead lights brightened one notch, and a soft chime rang, the same gentle bell that usually announced stops, but this time imbued with approval. Outside, the sun's rim peeked over the warehouse roofs, the doors whispered shut, and the tram rolled forward, passing the canal again, this time in the correct direction. It stayed obedient through second and third stations. When they neared fourth, the carriage shivered. Lena sensed that Amir's confession had pushed them only so far. The mechanism hungered for another tale. She found herself rising. I'm Lena. First day at a new job. Her voice trembled, but steadied as she kept speaking. When I was 10, my mother took me on the same tram to the migrant office, said we'd start fresh in a real country. She promised we'd return to our island soon, before the mangoes ripened. 11 summers have passed and we never went home. I pretend that's fine, that I prefer streets with trams to paths through coffee trees, but some nights I still dream of salt on the wind and wake with my pillow wet. I've never admitted that aloud, not even to her. The power cables overhead sang. The sign that normally scrawled advertisements flashed a single word, thank you. At fourth station, 2 new commuters stepped on, a tattooed woman carrying a cello case and a janitor with bleach still perfuming his clothes. They glanced at the odd sign, then at the still-standing Lena. Tattoo woman cocked her head. Do I need to audition before finding a seat? Amir filled her in, gesturing as if he'd always known the rules. Her eyebrows rose, but she tucked her cello under a bench and said, "Right then, I'm Petra." She placed a hand on the case. For 5 years, I toured small venues and played background strings for famous people who never bothered learning my name. Yesterday, I quit. No backup plan. Felt like sawing through the last rope on a bridge and tossing the violin to the river, except mine's a cello and worth more than my apartment, she exhaled. That's terror talking, but also relief. Again, the tram eased forward, past 5th and 6th. The city outside had brightened to that fleeting rose gold moment before daylight settles into ordinary blue. Cars appeared at intersections, but always waited, never quite crossing the tram's path, like extras in a film frozen until cued. They approached 7th station. Lena stopped for Hildebrandt Bakery. She gathered her tote, but the conductor's chime sounded impatient and the doors refused to open. The carriage quivered backward an inch, threatening another rewind. The janitor stepped into the aisle, rubber soles squeaking. "I'm Toussaint. Cleaned the Central Hospital 15 years. Last night I mopped maternity, saw a newborn in the observation window, no family yet mother in recovery. I waved the mop like an idiot and the baby yawned. I thought, you're so new, the world hasn't disappointed you." He swallowed. "I applied to nursing school once, didn't get in, never tried again. In that moment, I promised that child I would try this year, even if I'm 43. The tram dinged and slowed, doors finally gliding open at 7th. Lena hesitated. She was already late, but the ride had become pilgrimage. She texted the kitchen foreman a desperate apology about tram delays and remained on board. 8 passengers now shared a current of alertness. They were by all appearances random city folk, a miniature census car, yet Lena felt they'd stepped beyond ordinary time into a space where intimacy was both ticket and engine. At 8th station, the Polish nurse with freckles, Jagoda, addressed them. "When I was 9, my grandmother taught me to whistle between my teeth. She said it could summon helpers from the forest. Last week, after a double shift, I walked home through Wilzudzki Park and whistled because my feet hurt. A stray dog followed me. She's sleeping in my bathtub now until I can find a proper place that allows pets." She whistled a thin, shaky trill. The tram's bell mimicked it an octave higher. Her fellow nurse, Tomek, grinned. "And I," he said, "pretended to hate that dog so our supervisor wouldn't scold us for letting her in the break room. Yet I secretly smuggle her sausage." They clapped, laughter coursing through the car, and in that hilarity, Lena noticed the scenery gained saturation, as though each story painted deeper pigment onto the world. 10th station passed. At 10th funnel on the line, the old man with the jade eyes rose. They all assumed he had story rights reserved, but instead he walked to the motorman's compartment. The cab was empty, its lever moving in accordance with some invisible hand. He placed his palm atop it, the tram stilled. He turned to the group. "Name's Merrick. You've heard I've ridden before. I never told why. 3 weeks ago, my wife died. Stroke took her between the tea kettle whistle and her reaching the stove. She was the only person who knew the whole of me. The silence since has been," he faltered, fingers curling on the lever, "the first dawn after her funeral. I boarded this tram because I couldn't bear our empty apartment. It reversed, same as today. I didn't speak. Neither did anyone else. We looped until the sun was high, and then, without ceremony, the tram completed its route. I went home, no lighter. Second morning, I tried again, still said nothing. A woman finally told a story and broke the loop, but I left before my turn. Each day since, I've come seeking courage to speak. Today, thanks to you lot, I found it." He exhaled, and everyone waited, sensing more. "She and I argued the night before she died. Over nothing. The correct shelf for mugs." He smiled wearily. "After 52 years, we had run out of big things to disagree on, so we sharpened the small ones. I went to bed angry. She stayed up reading. The kettle must have been her midnight cuppa. My last words to her were, 'You organize the cupboards if you're so clever.' I'd give every remaining hour I have to swap them for 'Good night, I love you.'" Silence filled the car, not with discomfort, but reverence. Dawn had fully broken. Sunlight poured through the windows, gilding Merrick's beard. The digital sign flickered blank, then printed a single line Lena would remember for the rest of her life. "Keep going." The tram advanced. Beyond 10th station lay tracks Lena had known only on maps, an industrial sideline decommissioned decades earlier. Rusted rails should have blocked the way, yet the path ahead looked newly polished. Trundling over a viaduct, they reached an 11th platform, unmarked and inexplicable, jutting above a marsh where cranes fished. The carriage sighed to a halt. Nobody moved. An intuition pulsed among them. The journey wasn't finished. And suddenly, something took. Merrick gestured toward the open doors. Perhaps there's one last story? His gaze rested on Silk Suit, who had remained mute since the first reversal. She stiffened, clutching her tablet. I don't owe confession to strangers, she said, voice brittle. No, Lena agreed softly, but maybe you owe it to yourself. Silk Suit looked out at the marsh, then back at them. She muttered an oath, rose, and stepped into the aisle. My name is Eliza. 20 years I've climbed corporate ladders, broken ceilings, whatever metaphor you want. Yesterday, the board promoted me to vice president. Everyone toasted. Champagne, speeches, selfies. When I got home, my apartment was silent except for the refrigerator's hum. I poured another glass, sat on the floor in my power dress, and felt nothing. No triumph, no relief, no pride, just a hollow like someone tilted me and let the good stuff drain out. I searched my phone for one person I wanted to call with the news and realized I only had numbers of people who wanted something from me. Her voice cracked. Achievement is supposed to pay for loneliness, right? Except the bill keeps growing. She inhaled audibly as if surfacing from deep water. I don't know what to do with that truth, but there it is. The digital sign changed again. Thank you, Eliza. The marcheries swayed, though no wind touched their faces. Cranes lifted, wing beats consonant with the tram's idling engine. Amir spoke into the hush. Maybe what we do is step off. Merrick smiled. I think so. One by one, they descended. The platform was warm, the wood newly varnished, smelling of pine. Yet no map featured this place, and no street rose beyond the marsh embankment. Above, the sky shone uninhibited blue. The tram doors closed, but rather than depart, the car powered down, lights dimming, until it looked like an ordinary vehicle parked for maintenance. Lena shaded her eyes, turning a circle. Where are we? Petra pointed. A path of gray stone extended from the platform into the reeds, curving out of sight. On its first slab, words were etched in plain block letters. Walk together. Eliza gave a half laugh. All right, then. They followed the path, single file, cello, mop, nurse's bags, walking stick, pastries. Despite the surreal setting, Lena felt grounded for the first time since leaving her island. Wetland birds croaked. Unseen frogs plopped into water. After perhaps 2 city blocks distance, the stones led onto a causeway and finally resumed at a modest square of packed earth, bordered by bench seats fashioned from reclaimed tram car timber, to go to pressed a palm to the smooth, varnished surface. A meeting place. She glanced at Merrick. Seems the tram gave us homework. They arranged themselves on the benches. Sun warmed their backs. The city skyline was a smudge on the horizon. Here, the air smelled of water mint and clay. It would have been easy to slip into awkward silence, but Lena discovered she didn't fear that anymore. We can't stay forever, she said, but we can choose what we carry back. Petra unsnapped her cello. I can offer music. Amir rummaged in his backpack, produced a plastic flask. I've got apple juice, symbolically wholesome. Dusan tore a length of paper towel from his pocket, laid it on the bench, and set out 2 pastries Lena had brought for the bakery, tasting almond pockets. Slightly crushed, she blinked at him. I forgot they were there. He winked. Hospitality department. Marek leaned his stick against the bench and clasped his hands. Shall we dedicate? Eliza spoke before anyone else. 2 first steps, she said, raising an imaginary glass. 2 second chances, Dusan added. 2 dogs in bathtubs, Tomek said, and Jakota laughed, linking her arm through his. Lena raised her pastry. To strangers who don't stay that way, Petra positioned the cello between her knees, title for this impromptu piece, 11th Station. She drew the bow, mellow resonance rolled across the marsh. They ate, drank, listened. Tears were shed without embarrassment. Laughter followed, not to chase away the tears, but to stand beside them in equal honor. In that small clearing beyond charts, each person felt the tram's impossible demand transform from curse to covenant. Tell your story, hear another's, and forward motion becomes possible. Eventually, the angle of light signaled mid-morning. City obligations tugged. They collected crumbs, closed instrument cases, stored juice flasks, yet no one worried about missing the tram. Somehow they knew it would appear when ready. Amir broke the lingering reluctance. Same time tomorrow? Heads nodded. Merrick added, but let's board at different stops, recruit new travelers. Agreed, Lena said. She touched Merrick's arm. And there's room on my spice shelf if you'd like a pastry lesson this afternoon. He chuckled. Only if you let me rearrange your mugs. They returned along the stone path, and as they approached, Tram 11 glided soundlessly to the platform, fresh electric hum in its wires. The handwritten sign above the buttons had disappeared. In its place was printed metal, share, carved as factory lettering, immutable. Boarding felt different now, like stepping into a chapter rather than an escape. They took seats nearer each other. Merrick placed his stick across his knees and said, "Who's first on the ride back?" This time, no pause lingered. Jogada raised her hand and began, "When I was 6, I believed frogs were fallen stars." Lena smiled out the window as the marsh receded. The city, afloat in sunlight, looked newly possible because she knew the secret infrastructure beneath its rails, a circuit of shared humanity electrified by story. She wasn't late for work. She was precisely on time for the rest of her life. The tram rolled forward, unburdened by the need to rewind, and in the sway of its motion, Lena felt the delicate yet unbreakable thread now linking her to these companions. Tomorrow, there would be more. Commuters, drifters, executives, custodians, each one carrying a tale that, once spoken, would do what stories always do when trusted to strangers, turn space into place, crowd into community, and a simple morning ride into the unstoppable journey of being alive together.